I think we've been hearing a lot of this stuff about there's still no investors. It just it's just really bizarre, I think, how they just still don't have it together. But
And they're trying to frame it like
I'll
it's
just
all good. He said they're in good
We
I'll
shape.
haven't,
just
That was his word, good shape.
yeah,
We're
we
in good
haven't. I
yeah.
mean, we haven't seen a relocation go like this. And well, there hasn't been a relocation of a franchise. I mean, in any, I'm trying to think of the last major relocation of a franchise in a pro sport, and I'm having a hard time thinking of it. But I can't recall one that's like taken this long. Like you think
No.
about the famous relocations.
Do you think about the Phoenix Coyotes or
Yeah, that
whatever?
was
Arizona Coyotes. It
It's like
took
one
them
off.
overnight, like
a
Yeah,
weekend.
overnight.
overnight, literally overnight.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, same thing. The Baltimore Colts to Indianapolis, like literally the
Yeah.
same. The moving trucks in the dead of night. That kind of thing. But I can't recall a time where there was like a 3+ year relocation, or you announce if you include the announcement, time frame, like 5 years basically, right? Like what, 23, and then we're moving in 28. Yeah, so five entire three, four, five, six, seven, 5 entire seasons of baseball will be played before the A's move to Las Vegas from announcement
Yeah.
to.
There was like a lot of weirdness when the Expos ended up going to DC.
Mhm.
They like they had like one foot out the door. They were playing half the season in San Juan for a
Right.
season, I think. It was bizarre, yeah. But then they were able to just play at RFK for a while um until their Nat Stadium was built for them. But God, yeah, it's just so bizarre there. The
Well,
the
I also think like
news.
strong public schools Nevada like still has a chance, right? Because Mark Arnold was
Yeah.
saying that the PSLs could go. He said the word "us," like basically saying the PSLs go to Las Vegas Stadium Authority, and then Alex Marks, he's part of Nevada's
Yeah.
schools or Nevada State Education Association. He pointed out to the fact, if he's saying that the Stadium Authority is, capturing this money, that it needs 2/3 majority of vote, and they didn't get that for SB1, so.
Yeah.
I know that's like one of the big five areas they're challenging the constitutionality, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
and I think Mark Arnold's comment. I'll be the charitable one for Mark Arnold. I think is just pointing out that the law actually specifies that the PSLs do belong to the Stadium Authority. So it's not like he's making some special comment. It's just like that's just what the law says. It's the Stadium
he's just
Authority and
reading
the
the language.
PSLs,
Yeah,
and then that gets any proceeds from the PSLs gets thrown into the construction account. Uh,
yeah,
but um, but it is a salient point that I think under I go back and say, I'm not a Nevada lawyer, I'm a California lawyer, so there's differences in how the law can operate, but it seems to strong public schools point view that a fee being raised, and they're using this as a method of governmental revenue generation for any purpose is required a 2/3 vote. And so if they're right on that, then what's interesting is that the Nevada Constitution talks about that provision in the terms of a bill requires 2/3. So if that fails, does the whole bill fail? Maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
That's another interesting question
Yeah.
now. Even if that falls, does the whole bill fall?
yeah.
That's an
And
open.
also, it sounds like the A's still are. They don't. I know they listed PSLs as one of their three funding sources, but it sounds like they don't even know if they're going to use PSLs. It's like literally they have public
I
funds,
mean,
and then that's it. That's like
I
all
mean,
they
I
do.
haven't
Yeah.
seen. Well, the Texas Rangers didn't sell PSLs, and I don't know enough about how PSLs have worked
Yeah.
in baseball stadiums in the
I think
past.
it's more like just elite clubs, like really, really
I,
like it's like a small volume. It's not like the NFL where it's like, tens of thousands. Like I think it's like a small, probably in the hundreds at most, of
yeah,
contracts you have, So yeah, I don't think it's apples and oranges. It works for the NFL because supply and demand, but when you have 80 games, it's like it's not the same,
yeah, but there's only 33,000 seats, so it's
Oh yeah, it's only half the stadium. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm just skeptical that they're going to get this financing together in time. And yeah, it's just so weird when Sandy Dean's like, "Oh, this is by design." Like, "Oh no, this is we're we got to get the stadium figured out first, and then we'll get investors." I'm like, okay, yeah, sure.
It's
I
like,
mean,
you just spent like the last 18 months, like, pushing back on like, oh, we don't need to show you any, drawings or or renderings or anything. And then suddenly, you come in today or last week and just say like, oh, we didn't want to actually start selling equity until we had, more concrete plans for the stadium. It's like, oh,
Yeah, there's
Okay.
just a lot of holes in it. I mean, for as confident as you sounded, it just seems like if you really look at it, it just seems like there's a lot of holes. So yeah.
Jeremy, I know, especially lawyers like hate to answer broad, hypothetical, and what if kind of nonsense. But
Let me
like,
stop right there. It depends. Go ahead.
right now, okay, great, perfect. but if this were to fall apart, what do you think the most likely way for it to fall apart would be?
I mean, I think the most likely was just that he just doesn't come up with the equity, and the Fisher family doesn't actually come through. I mean, that's one easy scenario I could see. The other, yeah, that would be like the most natural. Doesn't need intervention by a court or anything sort of way. Now that being said, Nevada's well, having been a frequent visitor to Las Vegas, setting aside visits to the stadium authority, actually, I remember I even said when I went up to the when I went up to Carson City during the SB1 debates, I even mentioned that I am one of the sports tourists that Steve Hill has always been so excited to bring in. Um,
2.6 million a year. Woo.
yeah. So I've been to a few Golden Knights games to see. It's a longer story how I became fans of
Something like
the
that, yeah.
Flyers and Canucks, but boo, yeah, I know. But uh, sorry, what was the? Oh, I mean, I guess the other way. Oh no, I was making that point to say that one possibility is that they don't get it at that point, but I was kind of saying that I wasn't sure that the law really gives them a deadline. So the stadium authority might
Yeah,
say, okay, we'll come back to us next month. Come back to us next month. And
yeah,
you look at things like if you've heard of All Net Arena, that was a proposal for I think it was going to be a basketball arena that was going to be somewhere near the on the North Strip near Circus, that area. Um, and then the developer was the developer was much less of a established person. It was clear that
mhm,
this person didn't have money on their own, but kept promising like, oh, investors are interested, and so the Clark County Commission kept extending, their conditional use, this and that for another 6 months, until finally they just like had enough. Like, we can't reserve this parcel of land for you for in perpetuity. So come back to us when you actually have money. I could very well see that sort of thing, as a face saving measure. I mean, the A's lease in Sacramento goes to 20, has the option for the extra year, so they have allowed for that contingency. So, that's the money not showing up right away doesn't necessarily mean that it's all over in Las Vegas. Uh,
yeah.
but I think as even Sandy Dean pointed out, the longer it takes to get shells in the ground, the more expensive construction tends to get.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So
And
yeah.
do you think do you think that the lawsuits that the teachers authority or the teachers union are pursuing, I assume that there's still sort of a long shot, but you know what 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 are we thinking of that? Is there like
It's
what's your
not,
feeling about that?
yeah, it's not nothing. I mean, there are, Nevada has an interesting history as far as, um, I don't know, just the nature of like, just how their state has kind of, I'm gonna start philosophizing about Nevada when I don't really, I don't know if I'm really qualified to speak on sort of the history of Nevada, but um, there's some interesting aspects of like their constitution that like doesn't exist in the California Constitution. Like restriction. It's definitely known as a libertarian, a state that has a libertarian streak. They have lots of provisions in their state constitution that have to do with like higher thresholds if you're imposing taxes and fees. Rules about making sure that things are generally applied rather than having state legislation that imposes special burdens on a particular locality. And so all I mean I think these are all very like live issues, and which way the seven justices of the Nevada Supreme Court come out on them, I can't say for sure, but they're definitely live issues. They're not frivolous issues at all.